about evolution, I was trying to write a history of life. And I started the obvious way, which is to begin at the beginning, go on till you come to the end and then stop. But I then realized that if the end that I went on to was humans, which there's every temptation to make it, because people tend to be very interested in humans, it would then look as though the end of evolution is humans. It would look as though evolution was always aimed at humans from the start, and a distressingly large number of people actually think it was. And so I wanted to dispel that illusion. And the idea of doing it backwards occurred to me as a good way of doing that, because if you do it backwards, no matter where you start, anywhere in the vast 10 million strong tree of life, any of the twigs of the terminal branches, you will always home in on the same root, which is the origin of life. So that gave the book a natural climax, the origin of life. And the idea of moving towards a natural climax brought to my mind pilgrimage. And then I sort of started thinking in terms of Bunyan, and I even almost called the book Pilgrim's Regress. Somehow Chaucer seems a better idea, not least because of the tale. I mean, it pretty soon occurred to me that I've been doing this, by the way, in collaboration with my research assistant, Yan Wong, who actually collaborated on some of the tale. And at some point in our discussion, we honed in on Chaucer and decided to have tales as kind of self-contained essays, which could be read on their own. But self-contained essays which are not arranged in just any old order, but essays which are arranged in this order of rendezvous. And we realized that there's a surprisingly small number of rendezvous, only 39. And therefore that gave a fairly neat structure to the book. A little bit louder, please.
At Rodney 2.40, that's, I think, the most fascinating book. In order for the origin of one to begin, with self-replicating model, and then one would be able to text that model in silence. Not a big question at all.
Yeah. Rendezvous 39 is where we meet the bacteria. Rendezvous 40, I even call it that, but the question is using the name Rendezvous 40 for the origin of life, which I call Canterbury. And it is a very big question. How did life get started? Nobody knows, of course. It happened a very long time ago. It happened under conditions which are no longer with us. The conditions under which life originated have been completely obliterated by the product, namely life. Notably, we now live in an oxygen-rich atmosphere, which is the product of green plants, green bacteria. So we can't now see the conditions under which life arose. It's got to be all done theoretically. Well, you can do a bit theoretically. We know the kind of thing the origin of life had to be, and as the questioner rightly said, that the kind of thing is a self-replicating molecule, a self-replicating entity of some kind. That is the essence of DNA. It's also the essence of means if they exist. Something self-replicating had to arise by spontaneous luck, according to the laws of chemistry, in the primeval, probably seed. Once that has happened, then the Darwinian process could take off, and life could evolve and give rise to the movement we see around it. But how did that first step happen? Well, chemists can conjecture what the early chemistry of the world was like, and they have tried setting up laboratory environments to simulate the origin of the early chemistry of the world. And you may know the famous Miller-Urey experiment, putting a fixture of gases which were thought to be out of the early atmosphere, passing an electric spark to simulate lightning, have boiling water underneath, steam rising, condensing as, quote, rain falling through the gases, and cycling round and round again and again. The Miller experiment produced, after a week or so, a thin soup which contained a number of organic compounds, a surprisingly large number of which were biologically interesting organic compounds. None of them, however, were self-replicating, nor had any such experiment yet produced a self-replicating molecule. They produced various steps towards self-replication, but not the real thing, not the real macaque. It starts to look as though the origin of the first self-replicating molecule was a very unusual, a very rare, improbable event. Maybe so improbable that there is no hope, realistically, of chemists ever reproducing it. In a way, I would find that rather consoling, because if the origin of life were a very probable event, if it were the kind of thing that a chemist could just do in the lab without any difficulty, then we would be left wondering, why isn't the universe crawling with life? The evidence seems to suggest that we haven't been visited, since we haven't even been visited by radio signals. The evidence seems to suggest that life probably isn't very common in the universe. Well, if you think about the number of stars in the universe, the number of planets that there probably are orbiting stars in the universe, let's say the number of opportunities there might be for life to have originated. Just suppose we here on this planet really are the only place where life exists. Perfectly possible, but we have no evidence to the contrary. In that case, since the number of possible planets is so gigantic, the event which is the origin of life would have to be an event just ludicrously improbable, vanishingly improbable, preposterously improbable, because otherwise it would have originated more than once, given the huge number of planets there are available. So, these sort of calculations of large numbers, in a way, it title us not to be too surprised if the chemists have difficulty reproducing the origins of life. As I said, in some ways it might be rather disconcerting if chemists found it easy to reproduce the origin of life. My own guess, it really is only a guess, is that life is rare in the universe, but probably dotted around in quite a large number of islands of life. Maybe each one is too far away from the others ever to know about any other. And if that were true, then you still expect that the chemical event which is the origin of life would be a very, very rare one. So it may be that there's no likelihood of chemists ever reproducing that. On the other hand, we shall see.
With respect to trying to education, at what point do you think it's appropriate if this evolution is being evolution of children? What is the way to go about it?
That's a fascinating question. At what age should evolution be introduced to children? I've been trying to think about 6. I don't see any reason why children, very tiny children, should not be introduced to the fact of where we all, including them, come from. I think they would be fascinated by it, riveted by it, and I think it could be made understandable. Children understand the idea of parents and grandparents, and presumably therefore great-grandparents, etc. So you could get the idea, if you ask, where do we come from? Well, you come from your parents, you come from granny and grandfather, you come from their parents, great-granny and great-grandfather, and so on. If you go back far enough, you'll find that your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, as you go back, gradually change into things that look a bit more like 8. Then you go back further again, they look a bit more like 90. I don't think that would be terribly difficult for children to understand. It would be a huge improvement on the codswallop that they are taught in religious classes. Do we have an answer about the...
However, when two immediately obvious.
Those hits were the junction of mimetic and economics, right? 28,000.
2800, but the thing, Aaron Lynch, Dawkins, Hayden mentioned you and mentioned memetics and economics, and then a book, and then another site called My Father Knows It mentioned you and hazard economics in one breath. I'm not quite sure why.